Welcome to Making Work Work for Humans. I'm Selena Jeffrey, leadership advisor, MBA, and PhD candidate researching the understated importance of trust, psychological safety, and the impact of narcissistic and toxic dynamics in the workplace. Each episode, I speak with leaders and thinkers who are carving their own path and reshaping how we work, from leadership and culture to learning and technology to the future of work. This episode is sponsored by Pushbar, technology built for humans at scale, helping organizations build productive, high-trust teams through mentoring. Let's dive in. Today, I'm joined by someone who brings all of that to life at the CEO level. Therese has spent over 2 decades in leadership roles across some of the most recognized brands in Australia. She's known not just for driving performance, but for being a genuinely human-centered leader who cares deeply about her people and her stakeholders. After recently leaving Madmex as CEO, she has recently stepped into the role of CEO at Oporto, which anyone who lives in Australia would know as the Portuguese chicken and burger restaurant chain. I've had the privilege of studying alongside Therese during our MBAs and sharing stages with her as keynote speakers on high trust teams, emotional intelligence, and cognitive load and its effect on leadership decision making. She is someone I know personally as a leader who leads with care and consistency and authenticity. In today's conversation, we'll explore how trust is built at the very top of an organization, what high trust leadership looks like in practice, and how leaders can make work work for humans. So, welcome, Therese.
Thanks, Selena. What a lovely opening. Thank you.
My pleasure. And you deserve every single word. We've known each other for quite a while now, so every word is definitely true and speaks from my heart. Now, so for the start of this episode, we're going to step back in time and we want to talk about the beginning of your career. So, you started on the restaurant floor at 15 and now lead as CEO. Looking back, what did those early experiences teach you about trust in leaders and in teams?
Oh, gosh. When you're 15, do you even think about what trust is? I started at KFC. Look, oh, my cousins, the world for convincing my dad to let me get a casual job. They were working there at the time. And it just started from there. I just loved it. I loved customer service. I loved working with different people. And then you didn't really realize that impact of leadership until I became a shift supervisor and sort of went up the management train. And I guess trust then was quite simple in that I trusted my team to do what they were required to do on the shift. They trusted me to lead them and to guide them. And it's not until you evolve further in your career when you're on big projects, when you've got big decisions, when you're leading businesses for people, that you start to realize trust is more than just someone getting their job done. Trust is
Mhm.
more than just, hey, you have a corporate credit card. Like, of course I trust you. Trust is two-way relationships. Trust is, I know you've got my back, and doesn't mean we agree all the time, but I know you're going to tell me when you don't agree and you're going to let me know why. And trust is that ability to have those conversations and you have that relationship and you're doing things that are in the best interest of the business and the people in the business. So it's evolved a lot from just expecting your team to do things on shift all the way through to building strong foundations and relationships to lead organizations.
I so agree with that. As you were speaking, it's interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a moment where, for example, because it's very hard for some people, how do you handle feedback? What happens when you receive that?
I say to people I'm trained when they say, oh, you handled that really well. And what do I mean by I'm trained? Many years ago, gosh, maybe we're talking 10 years ago now, I came across an amazing woman. Her name was Julie Spring, and she spoke to me about ego. And when she spoke about ego, she wasn't talking about egotistic, I'm bigger than the world. It wasn't that. She spoke to me about how ego is what protects you. It's human nature. Is what makes you feel good when someone says, "Hey, I really like your shoes." But it also is what makes you feel not so good when someone says, "Hey, I don't like that." When someone gives you feedback, what I have learned over the years is that actually it's my ego that gets hurt first more than anything. So when I'm receiving feedback, I remind myself that, okay, stop and listen, put the ego at bay here. What are they trying to tell you? Because your initial reaction is emotional. Your initial reaction is, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't want to hear this. But logically, you go, actually, if I did hear this and I learn from it, I can be a better person. So when I get feedback, and I encourage feedback all of the time, I lean into the discomfort because I know that's what makes me better. Ray Dalio, he has this rule where he says pain plus reflection equals progress. And
Wow.
what that means is I'm leaning into the discomfort, I'm feeling that pain, and then I reflect on it. And when I do that, I go, okay, I can be a better person because of this. And I think another way I look at feedback, Selena, is feedback is just another person's point of view. So we don't always have to agree with it. So when a person gives you feedback, that's their perspective as well. So it's about leaning into it, putting your ego at bay, genuinely listening and reflecting to what they have to say. Doesn't mean you have to change, doesn't mean you have to do something with it. What you have to do is consider it and reflect on and go, okay, well, what does this mean?
We're talking about trust. Do you think that from an ego point of view, when dropping your ego, that is the spaces where trust is built, isn't it? Because if you bring that ego in there, that's when things get a bit messy.
Yeah, I definitely think that because when you're dropping your ego, you're allowing yourself to be more human, just to be you. So the conversations are more authentic and you're not afraid to say, hey, it hurt me. I didn't like that. Could we talk about that? When your ego is at play, you want to protect yourself. So, absolutely. I think if you are very mindful as to, well, what's at play here? Is it my ego or am I trying to protect myself? Or can we actually have a conversation around this? Let's put the emotion aside and let's bring up the logic.
Those are the traits that really build and make up a great leader. And I guess let's move a little bit into the future now and around your role at Madmex, and I know that you've been in your role at Oporto not long, so you're building that role. What is top of mind when you're building credibility and trust when you come into a role, and an ongoing perspective as well?
I'm a big believer in just being yourself, Selena. We hear often around, fake it till you make it and imposter syndrome, very common with females. And I'm just all about, hey, this is me. And by being me, I'm going to be true to myself. And by being true to myself, I'm going to be true to you. And what I have found in my career is that builds credibility because people go, Therese is also human. Like if we're in the middle of a 2-hour meeting and I've had too many coffees at that point and I'm not concentrating, I'm the person that goes, all right, guys, 5-minute break. I really need to go to the loo. You don't have my attention anymore. And they
Yeah.
laugh. We'll have a 5-minute break. And it just reminds them CEOs need a pee too sometimes. Slowly, they remember you're human. And so you build this credibility by just being yourself. And I think, and I think you and I have spoken about this as well. Trust builds trust. So
Mm.
in the early days of building relationships in new roles, in new companies, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if you talk to someone in confidence, you keep that confidence. If you see there's an area that needs help, you help them because trust builds trust. At times, as humans, we tend to lead with not trusting others. I've said to my leadership team, over the years, I trust you entirely unless you give me some reason not to. Leading with trust rather than waiting for trust to be earned, that also changes the dynamic as well and really builds up credibility.
I love that. And I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation because this is what makes up a human centered leader. It's about trusting. And then if someone breaks that trust, then the trust is broken. Let's go back to you mentioned before about being yourself. Now, that's not easy. Do you find that easy? Or have you found that that's been a lot of personal work to show up as yourself?
A lot of personal work, Selena. And remember, I spoke about ego before? You've got to control your ego so much because I wear blue jeans and black top suit jacket every day. That's just my look. And I do that because of decision fatigue. Sometimes I have walked into meetings or I have walked into events and I've gone, should I be in like a full suit here? Should I have worn my heels? And if you start to let that get away, you go, I'm feeling inferior. I'm feeling like I don't belong here. I'm feeling, what is all of that? That's actually my ego at play here. That's my ego going, you should have dressed better and you don't look as good as them and you should have done this. Actually, put my ego at bay. I go, this is me. I believe in decision fatigue. I have pretty simple wardrobe. I wear a suit jacket, my blue jeans pretty much wherever I go, and I'm okay with that. So, is it easy to just be yourself? Gosh, you would love to think that that was the answer. And how strange, how sad is it that we can't just say, hey, just be yourself and be comfortable with that? I think a big part of it is putting our ego at bay, to just be you. And like, think about when you're with friends, like, think about when I'm with you and we talk and we critique each other. We say things we like, we don't like. Oh, I love that. Or can you just do that? That's because we've built a relationship and that relationship has come from trust. You're more comfortable being yourself when you're in an environment where people just respect you for who you are, just love you for who you are, because your ego is at bay there. It's not fighting to defend you in any way. That's what, if we as leaders can create that within our teams and everyone's just their best self, I think it just changes organizations.
I agree. And what I love what you said before is about being consistent and showing up. And I know like how busy your workload is. And when you say you're going to do something, even though we haven't spoken for ages and then we're meeting, say, for example, at a time on a date, regardless if we haven't spoken for weeks, you're there. You never not turn up. And it's just, and that's a perfect example of how that should play out in an organization is about showing up, being consistent, and do what you say you're going to do, because that's the part, the micro moments that build trust.
You and I have spoken about this so much. To build trust in those micro moments, leaders have to create psychologically safe environments. I know this is a whole buzzword word at the moment. Going back to what we were saying before, if you can't be yourself because you're not comfortable in the environment and you need to build trust, you need to change the environment to allow you to do that, because little micro moments of trust within the team, if the whole environment doesn't embrace you to just be yourself, then that's where challenges are going to arise.
Absolutely. So that's an interesting point around psychological safety. Maybe can you tell me a little bit about what psychological safety looks like for you?
It's an environment where I could be myself and not fear of judgment, not fear of getting in trouble. It's a place where you're comfortable to challenge the status quo. And in fact, leaders encourage it. It's where it's a team that if someone within the team goes, actually, I'm not sure this is the right thing for the business. I think I disagree here. The rest of the team goes, hey, help us understand why. And that's okay. Examples of where you know it's not a psychologically safe environment is if before the meeting you're talking to some of your peers and you're like, yeah, you know what, we should do that with that project. I agree. You go into that meeting and people might put different points of view and suddenly it's gone quiet. Nobody wants to share their opinion anymore. Everybody's avoiding conflict. You stop and you question, okay, what happened here? Why was there a different conversation outside this meeting, maybe in a more psychologically safe environment, than in the meeting where conflict started to arise because people had disagreements and different points of view, which is brilliant for business from my perspective, because now we're looking at all different lenses and all different areas of what can happen, assessing risk. But when people go quiet, they no longer support their position, they no longer have a position, that's where you go, is this a psychologically safe environment?
Good point. So that raises a very interesting topic there, because tell me what you think on this. There's the piece where people stay silent because they don't feel safe, like to raise and have an opinion and disagree with certain things or decisions that are being made. What
Yeah.
about on the same point of how do you know the difference between not someone not feeling safe to speak up in a meeting, and then the other piece where I know Brené Brown talks about this, where she says that not having someone's back in a moment or siding with somebody and staying silent is exactly the same, and you actually agree with the person that is not having somebody's back. I'm not sure that actually is how she said it. What do you see at a meeting and you can tell the difference between someone staying silent and just literally agreeing, so not standing up for themselves or standing up for a person that's been spoken about?
If you stay silent and you don't speak up, then that's just as much as as not supporting a decision. Even if you
Mm.
supported that decision, not saying anything isn't supporting that person either. Here's not to say, Selena, that, in pre-meetings, in your different team meetings, you may have come to a decision or a conclusion, a way you wish to go. And then when it came to the broader meeting, maybe the discussion actually did change your point of view. That's fine. That's the whole point of having
Mm,
that discussion. But to then stay silent shows that lack of support and what breaches trust. Instead, that person should go, "Hey, Selena, actually, we were talking about this outside this meeting, and I know this is where we got to, but now I'm thinking we need to consider X and we need to consider Y." That's now acknowledging your point of view. It's acknowledging the fact in the room that we had a conversation and we had come to a certain point, but actually, this conversation has changed that. And that's okay. But by speaking up, by acknowledging the person, you've protected them. Like you've shown that I
mm.
still trust you, I still support you, but I do think we need to think about things differently now.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it seems to be hard. Not a lot of people are being human centered. Let's maybe look at the opposite. Have you been in an environment where you've witnessed and seen and experienced psychologically unsafe environments? What does that look like? And what was the damage from that?
Well, I think we've all experienced it at some point in our career. Psychologically safe environments that I have been in tend to be ones where a very little decisions get made. And the decisions that get made tend to be from the top down because the team are fearful of challenging the status quo or leaning into conflict. And instead, just we become a yes organization. And so the organization goes in one direction because everybody's too afraid to say something. I think the other thing that happens in organizations that aren't psychologically safe, in my experience, is a lot of toxicity tends to arise and a lot of politics because if I can't trust you, Selena, and I'm insecure in myself, and remember the ego piece, right? I want to protect myself as well. So this
Mm,
is where some toxic behaviors come out, workplace politics comes out because I don't trust you. There's a lack of leadership from the top in terms of this environment where it's okay to disagree and we support each other. So, therefore, I'm going to display behaviors that are really below the line because I'm trying to protect myself here as well. So, teams are not forming. There's whether you call them attacks, whether they're to their faces, behind their faces. And instead of focusing on growing the business and growing the people in the business, it becomes this fight for survival and who's going to
mm.
be at the end. And in my experience, it moves away from let's do what's in the best interest of the business and the people of the business, and it moves to let's do what's in the best interest of myself.
Absolutely, because people start to go into that fight, flight, freeze or fawn state because they're trying that state of survival. Well
Absolutely.
put. I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. When we can think about back to our MBA days when studying change management around
Yeah.
what is the biggest failure or what is the biggest success of change management, and it's the success piece is bringing in stakeholders early
Yeah.
and bring them on the journey. And I think that, like, from that perspective, what when you bring your stakeholders in early when you're making big decisions for the business, what impact do you see across the business that that has?
It's huge. You get their buy-in from early on, but not only their buy-in, you get their perspective. And it takes time to build this within the team. And obviously I'm quite new at Oporto and I'm still trying to work on this within my team because they've got to lead into the discomfort. But from the get-go, you go, okay, well, what do we think? And what's the other point of view? Okay, we're now all saying yes. Somebody say no. Let's think of this differently. And the founder of Mad Max has a great saying. He always says a little bit of rudder, so it's a boat analogy, a little bit of rudder away from the rocks is a lot better than a lot of rudder at the rocks. And effectively, if anyone's steered a ship before, you can't really turn the ship quickly. You'll sink it, it'll flip. It needs to be a little bit at a time further away. So I always keep that in mind when I think about engaging stakeholders early because from the start, you can shift, you can move, you can start to mold things in a way where all stakeholders are in agreement and it's in the best interest of the business. But if you bring them in at like the last hour and say, hey, by the way, guys, this is what we've decided to do, you can't change it. They don't feel involved. It's a lot harder to get buy in, get a whole heap of emotional people for various reasons, whether the project doesn't meet their needs, whether they're just feeling left out. Going back to that trust piece, we keep bringing it back to trust, Selena, but actually, if you engage them from the beginning, they trust you're always going to bring them on the journey. And from the get go, they have a say. And if the say is all positive, then you challenge them to go, okay, let's put the other hat on. What do we think? And slowly, slowly, you start to steer the ship into the right direction that the business needs it to head in.
As I've said to you before, you always are the best person for any big challenge. And it's true. It's everything that you're saying right now is really the key pieces of being human centered, putting people at the forefront of your decisions and of your business. And when you do that, it's not about forgetting about the bottom line because all of that, the bottom line is impacted in a positive way.
Absolutely. Someone said to me once, they said, so what sort of CEO are you? It's like, oh, what do you mean? They're like, oh, well, what sort? I said, oh, well, I am a big believer in combining people and profit, right? There are people that deliver the needs of the business at a profit. And they said, oh, no, no, you can only be a people CEO or a numbers CEO. No, I don't think so. And I reflect on that conversation. I look back on my career and went, no, actually, you don't have to be one or the other. We need people to run our businesses and they drive our results. And actually, you wouldn't have a business if it wasn't profitable and making money. So there are all the commercial metrics you need to hit as well. But you need the people to do that. To say you're either a number CEO or a people CEO and you can only be one or the other, I think it's such old school thinking. I think going back to, human centric leaders, got to be both. You got to understand that, hey, I need a business at the end of the day. It's got to make money. It's got to turn a profit and it's got to meet shareholder expectations or private investor expectations. But you need people to run that business. And that's where you need that human centric leadership. And you need to lead people in a way that they're going to be their best self to deliver you the best outcomes.
Absolutely. And I read today somewhere, actually, it was from Alexis, who is the founder of We Are Human Leaders. It was actually a blog that she brought out, and it was saying, treat your people like your customers. Because if you treat your people like your customers, then your people are going to treat your customers just like you're treating them. And then it's a beautiful circle that comes around and actually benefits the business in such a positive way.
So true. And at Oporto, obviously being in the food game, and we are a chain of over 225 stores, I say to the team often, we need to be the hospitality we expect to see from our stores. We need to lead in a way that we expect them to lead. When we recently had our convention, and that was my briefing to the team beforehand, we need to lead with this Portuguese hospitality. And what they see us do is what we want them to mirror in our stores. So it starts with us. We absolutely should be treating our people like our customers.
And when, for example, you have multiple layers, you're not only dealing with your team, you're also dealing with franchise owners, frontline employees, as well as the corporate teams. It comes back to we've got the trust piece, which also helps people belong. You're really touching on it there. Is like, how do you create belonging across multiple divisions within an organization where, for example, the franchise owners operate differently, think differently, and have a different perspective to, say, for example, frontline employees and corporate teams? How do you bring that all together?
That's a really good question. And I won't say it's easy because it is not. Each one of those stakeholders has different motivations and they have a different reason for being where they are. An employee in our support office gets paid, they get a salary. Our franchise partner, well, it's profitability. They have stores that they need to run. I think first and foremost, when you were talking, the thought that crossed my mind is, Selena, we just need to listen to our stakeholders. Sometimes my franchise partners are so angry over various things and various franchise partners on different things that may or may not be working with them. I can feel and I can see that there are many members in my business, whether it's in this brand or other ones that I work for, that get angry with that because, of course, our egos come to play and we go, well, we never said that and we didn't do that and they should have done this. Actually, we just need to listen. And when we listen and put our ego at bay, we go, what's this stakeholder telling me here? What are they feeling? What are their motivations? And then from that, we can take action. I think it's really important to note, and you spoke about three different groups there, very different groups. They were their franchisees, frontline employees, or in the office. It's really important to note that whilst they're all human, they would all have different need states. They will all have different motivations. We need to understand what they are. And even across, take my franchise partner group, even across them, they would have different need states, different emotions, different reactions, different mindsets. I'm going to go back to what I said at the start. It's not easy, but I think some of the key things are just listen. Like, just listen, put your ego at bay, just listen. Or what is this stakeholder telling you? How are they feeling? What's happening? And then try and understand what's their needs state, what are their motivations, and then how can you help them? I think another thing as I said all of that, I go, and also I can't do it myself, Selena. So, how do I upskill my executive team? The more they're upskilled and understand, I just need to listen. I need to not take this personally. I need to learn that my stakeholders are all different. I can start to multiply that thinking because we're 225 locations, we're 170 franchise partners. You could just imagine as we continue to grow, I can't be the one person that listens to that. It needs to start with me, cascade to my executive team, but cascade to all levels of the business so that we are all leading with heart. We are all leading with the understanding that every person is different, but let's just listen. Let's understand their need state. Let's understand their motivation and then work out how we can help them.
I love that. As you were speaking, I was thinking this is such a vital part of running an organization. I know for a fact that you get on the floor, you go into the restaurants, you
Yeah.
serve people. And it's so great because this can be applied across any kind of business, like large, small, in between. Getting on the floor or in contact with the different levels within the business is how you get to know the customers and what's really happening in the business. And I think that is such a key point. And how is that, for example, go and you serve burgers, and not only are you working with your franchise owners, but you're actually
Yeah.
serving customers? When you walk away from that, what changes?
Oh, I get so many more insights. I could tell you that we had a state meeting and I got to visit one of the stores. As we came in, I think it was like a tour bus had come in and they were unexpectedly really busy. And so I went in and I went to what we call like the chip dump or the chip station because like the fry station is sort of the easiest one where you can help and not get in their way. Let's be frank, I'm a little rusty now, Selena. Once upon a time, I was super fast, but I'm not on the tools every day anymore. So I went in, I was like, okay, how can I help? And the franchise partner initially was a bit like, CEO's in my store, and she's now like, how can I help? And then I said, I want to help. Trust me, I'm pretty good at this. I know how to pack chips. Let's go. And so his team were great, and they were like shouting out directions to me. And I left that. And 3 months later, I'm still using examples from the 30 minutes I was in that store when they just got absolutely swamped. It's allowed me to participate in different discussions across the business, whether it's in store builds, when we talk about store builds in the workflow, to ask questions around, hey, is that the right location for that? Because I sense this. It's allowed me to understand, hey, this store is really good for speed of service because this is what they do. But a month earlier, I was at a different store where the speed of service was slow. And I didn't realize that they weren't doing what this store was. And I didn't know that till I had got there. And it also helps me have conversations with the head of operations and the BCs. So the BCs are our business consultants. And I try to go out on the road with them one day every month. I'll be honest, it ends up being once every 6 to 8 weeks sometimes. But I go out with them and that's where I hear what's happening on the ground. All of that lays up into, as a CEO, you really are in your ivory tower a lot of the time. So the more you get out of that ivory tower, you get on the floor, you speak to people on the ground, you work side by side with franchisees, the conversations you're able to have when you go back into the ivory tower are so much more relevant and it's so much more powerful. And bringing it back to trust, because I think that is so important. I feel like the conversations I have with some of my franchise partners and our ops teams have a higher weight of trust because they've seen me on the floor, because they understand that it's not just lip service. I've seen what they've gone through. I know how hard it is to close a store at 11 p.m. in the evening and you're tired and the place is terrible and a team member called in sick. It adds a little bit of credibility to understand I know what you're going through. And now when I'm making decisions in my ivory tower, they're relevant to what's happening on the front line.
Like you said that you know what they're going through. This brings me back to what I absolutely love about you is that you genuinely care. And when you genuinely care, that's where the magic happens. What I'm really hearing from this conversation is if, for example, a CEO is sitting in a position where they're really struggling either with their culture or the organization, or they've come into a new role, and it's like you mentioned before about trying to turn around a massive big ship. Important key point here is get on the ground, start talking to people and really listen to what they have to say, because that is where you'll find the real rich nuggets of information to help you drive your big
Quick,
decisions.
skip meetings. Have a meeting with your direct report's direct report. And don't have a meeting. Go for a coffee. When I was at Mad Max, I had a goal that I would have a coffee with every member of support office once a year. That was my goal, right? I'm going to get it in and we're just going to go for a coffee. And that does not matter if you are the latest recruit and I hardly see you in the office, or if you're on my exec team and I see you every single day or every single week. I love those coffee conversations. Those coffee conversations became water cooler conversations. They became toilet conversations. They also gave them an opportunity that, hey, actually, there really is no hierarchy here. And I'm not happy with the decision we made here. So they'll just go, hey, can I talk to you about this? Or, hey, I heard this. Doesn't matter that I'm not their line manager. Doesn't matter that I'm the CEO. It just opened up conversations. And I learned so much from my coffee catch ups with them, from people right across the business, because they gave me insights that I don't see directly through my team, or I don't see directly through our leadership team meetings. And sometimes my team don't see them either, because we all get blind. It's human. You do your day to day, you do the daily grind. So a different conversation, a different perspective, that does wonders for how you can grow the business.
Absolutely. You mentioned before, sometimes you've been faced with, for example, someone that's angry about a decision or angry about something that's happening. When you face that and you go, tell me what's happening, or you sit there and you actually listen, you allow them to feel that they've been heard. Initially, what is their reaction and how have you flipped that script in that moment and ongoing what you've seen?
In terms of the reaction, you have a conversation, people feel heard, you can feel that they're coming out of emotion, they're more they feel good that they've got it all out. When you say how you flipped it, one of the things I tend to do is, and even if they're my direct report or if they're not, I say, okay, how would you like me to help you with this? Sometimes they go, oh, no, I think I've got it. And you realize, okay, they just wanted to talk about it. They just want to get it out. And other times they go, I don't know what to do. Okay, do you want to explore some options? So I think by putting it back on them and go, okay, how can I help you with this? They go, "Oh, someone's here to help me. And they don't usually expect you to say that. So like, okay, I've got help if I need it. We can brainstorm it if you like. And then sometimes I say things like, do you want me to share this with anyone else? Do you want me to share it with your line manager? And if they say yes, especially if it's about their line manager, my next question is, have you shared it with them yet? Because I'm a big believer in we're all grown ups. We're not all going to get along. We're going to have conflict. That's normal. It's healthy. It's great for organizations. But I shouldn't be fighting your battles for you either. If they say, hey, yeah, I did speak to my manager. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. How did it go? How can we resolve that? Again, how do you get them to take ownership to continue to resolve that situation? It's been on very, very rare occasions where I've had to intervene and speak with their manager. Instead, it generally ends up with us having a conversation about how they can go back and approach it, words that they could use. And then I check in. I always check back in. I actually put stuff in my diary because I forget. And I put like little things in my calendar that says, check in on Selena, like 7 days away. Or I might set an alarm on my phone. Hey, Siri, set a recurring alarm for Friday that says, call Selena. It builds trust again. And they go, wow, this is my message. It is, hey, just checking in. How are you? And it gives them the forum to go, hey, I'm good. Or, actually, the conversation didn't go well. Okay, hey, do you want to talk about it again? No, I'm all good. All right. Oh, hey, let's go for a coffee at 8:45. Let's have a chat. I think the more of those we could do, and remember that we're all humans. Doesn't matter what level you are. Doesn't matter how experienced you are. Doesn't matter what department you're in. We're all humans. We're all going to go
Mm.
through different stages. We just need to talk to people.
Absolutely. And it really shows that from the top, when you create an environment where everybody feels safe and everybody has everybody's backs, then it reduces and it breaks down those barriers around you saying, have you spoken to your manager? And then, as you said, majority of the time they don't, they say, yes, I've spoken to him, and it smooths itself out. If, for example, it was more of a toxic environment, those things can amplify, and then people are spending more time being disengaged,
So true.
not being happy about certain things, and it gets worse where when from the top, if you lead in a way that's human centered and everyone has their backs, that's when it really brings teams together.
It's absolutely, and both ways, Selena, are actually contagious. When you are in an environment where people are supporting each other and any toxicity is nipped in the bud straight away by the leadership team, good is breeding good. You're creating a great environment, and people know, hey, actually, those below the line behaviors, we might slip into them from time to time, but that's not accepted here. We want to stay above the line. And when we fall below the line, we'll help that person out and we'll bring them back above the line. In those
Mm,
environments where it's not safe, in those environments where it's toxic and it's politics and it's survival of the fittest, that breeds. And I
mhm,
have in my career, I've fallen into that trap before. I was in a role for a couple of years and I was in such a negative environment. Then I reflect back on the Therese then and I think, why did I say that? Why did I do that? But it was the nature of the environment I was in. And now I go, well, actually, that Therese of, 10, 15 years ago, she should have taken extreme ownership. She should have realized, actually, yes, that's the environment I'm in, but I'm a disciplined person. I know my values. I know my behaviors. This is how I'm going to behave. And if I don't fit in here, that's okay because I'm just going to be me. And that was before I learnt about, ego and all those things that have helped me the last 10, 15 years to really grow as a person and what I'm hoping to pass on to others. It was the environment I was in. And sometimes you just go along with it. It's like they say, you plant a seed in really terrible soil with lots of weeds, well, it's not going to grow and it's not going to do very well. You plant in fertile ground, you water it, you give it the best environment it could be, and it's going to grow into something absolutely magnificent and give you lots of fruit. I think the
mm.
same thing happens in the workplace. Then someone recently asked me, well, Therese, you always talk about it starts from the top. Can you change it if you're not at the top? And my answer to that is be the change you wish to see in the world. And
Mm,
again, it's a cliche and it's an age old saying, be the
no.
Muhammad God you that says it, right? Be the change you wish to see in the world. And I believe it's contagious. And if you're not at the top, it's gonna be harder. And you may not be able to spread it further than your team, but start there. There are lots of things out of your control, but start with the ones that are within your control.
And the right people see that when you are acting with integrity. And another key point is about always looking at assuming the right with everyone. So assuming that they had good
Yeah.
intentions and then explore the information first before coming to a judgment. And even, for example, when a leader brings up something that maybe they're questioning, and the leader not shuts it down, but always assumes that that person has good intention, but also still investigating it in a thoughtful, considered way, that really has speaks volumes of and creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So, Therese, I want to touch on being a female CEO. What advice would you share with other women who are stepping into senior roles about building authority and trust while staying authentic? And I don't even know whether authority is the word. Is that really the right word there? I don't
Not
know.
sure. I don't know either. Like, I think authority comes from respect. One wants to run a dictatorship. I almost feel like authority means, you're running a dictatorship of some sort. It's really interesting when people call this out for females, right? Like automatically it comes to, authority and trying to firm their place. And I go, oh, do these questions get asked to males or is it just assumed that they come with
Mm,
that? Um,
yes.
I'm going to go back to be yourself. Be yourself. If you build teams, if you have respect for your team, you trust them, they trust you, you build trust, that will give you the authority you need as a CEO, as an executive. I think women need to remember that they are human and they should lead in the way that suits them and they feel best. We're never going to lead the same way as males, but I say that and then I go, actually, two females doesn't mean they lead the same either. Come
Mm,
plenty of female leaders in my career, and we all have different leadership styles. And none of them are right or wrong. They're different leadership styles for different points in a business's life and for different businesses, right? So I think as a female leader, my advice is again, be yourself. Just be yourself. Go in there to all those things that we talk about human centric leadership, respect your team, build your team, trust your team, lead from the front, lead with values, lead with examples. You don't need to worry about, do I have the authority? you will build the respect. The authority will come. Just be yourself as your guide. What am I doing that's in the best interest of the business, the best interest of the people in the business? And that's all you need.
Oh, I love that. I want to touch on I was present at your keynote for AIB, Australian Institute of Business, who we both studied our MBAs with, and you presented on decision fatigue and cognitive load.
It was cognitive load and decision fatigue and the impact that has on leadership effectiveness. Something that I had discovered as I was doing my MBA, that there is a lot of research that shows the amount of effective decisions you make is actually finite. It's not infinite. So there have been a lot of studies, but one was a famous study of like a jury. As the day went on, their decisions became more lenient. So the cases that were earlier in the day, they were a lot harsher in what they suggested that the offenders should receive. And then as the day went on, they became more and more lenient because they started to suffer from decision fatigue. As leaders, we can't afford for that to happen. Some of the most famous people that promoted this, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, they talk about they had so many decisions to make in the day that they wanted to be in the best frame of mind to make them. So, what they did was eliminate the decisions that weren't actually going to change them as people or change their business. They wanted to automate the mundane. And Steve Jobs is famous for his black turtleneck and his blue jeans because it was one less decision he had to think about every single day. And when I was doing my MBA, it came a point, it was during COVID, had to homeschool my oldest daughter, had to do two subjects in my MBA at the same time at that point because I found out I was pregnant with our third. And if I wanted to finish my MBA before Gabriella was born, I had to do two subjects at this point in time. And you go, this is impossible. And I had already heard about the concept of cognitive load. So I initially did some research on, okay, well, how do I improve my cognitive capacity? And that's how I stumbled across decision fatigue. I went to a capsule wardrobe, meal planning. So if you open our pantry door, there's a 7-week rotating menu. So you know every Sunday what I'm going to cook up for the week. Don't ask me. It's there. I don't think that, all our bills are on auto pay. I did as much as I can to automate tasks. I just go into autopilot. I have on my wardrobe my daily routine. So this is what I do in the morning. I wake up at 5 a.m. I go to the toilet. Then I brush my teeth. Yes, I brush my teeth before I eat breakfast, but that's just what I do. Okay, let's just go with it. I brush my teeth. I fix my hair. I get dressed. I get dressed. Same clothes. I get dressed. Obviously clean ones, but I have a wardrobe of black tops and blue bottoms. And then like it breaks it up. And then after that, I try and do, 15 minutes of yoga or of meditation. And then, pending the day of the week, I then go into certain things. I don't have to think in the morning anymore, Selena. I wake up and I go tick, 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 tick. I was
Mm.
so amazed when I was looking for time, when I was trying to do these two subjects, how much time you spend trying to decide what to wear, how much time you spend trying to decide what to do for dinner. And not only time, the amount of cognitive capacity you are using for something as, call it trivial, like what am I going to wear today? As leaders, we want to make the best decisions for the business and the people in our business. And we don't know which point of the day those decisions are going to come up. So the more we can rest and reflect and automate as many tasks as possible, then we can use our brain power for where we need it most.
And that's such a great point because it makes you think, like, with listeners hearing this as you go through the day, when I'm choosing what to wear or I'm doing my hair or how I'm going to do my hair or what am I going to eat, I'm actually going to be thinking, do I need to keep doing this to myself or can I actually reduce this load, this cognitive load, so I can actually not be so fatigued by the end of the day?
You're like, is it necessary? And don't get me wrong, there might be fashion designers, they actually genuinely need to think about what they need to wear for the day, but that's part of
Oh,
their
of
work. That's
course.
their
Yeah.
decision, and that matters, right? Like, it's all relevant to that person.
Mm,
The
yeah.
takeaway is, what can you automate? What can you automate so that you just focus on making the best decisions for when you need to make them?
I think that is great advice. We've talked a lot about trust and building trust. Have you ever made a decision that broke trust? And if so, How did you work to repair it?
Recently, something's come up where I go, "Oh, that wasn't the right thing at the time." And as leaders, we've got to make decision about the people on your team all of the time. And there was a particular time where the board, there was a particular person on the team where may not have been the right person for the role. And the approach we went around was to look behind the scenes, look at other candidates, start to fill the role before we spoke with this person. Now, long story short, they stumbled across some emails just by default because they looked after the function that had access to there, and they realized that I was part of those conversations. And in hindsight, I go, I should have just had the conversation up front. I should have said, hey, let's have a chat. This is where we stand. Yeah, I've given you some feedback recently, but actually, I don't think this is working. And I think that you need to look for something else. And then they would know that I genuinely was part of that decision. I had that open and honest conversation with them. There was no trying to hide emails behind your back. Because if you think of that now, right, quite logical. At the time, you're in an emotional state. You're under pressure. You're trying to achieve KPIs, and as I say to you as well, Selena, I almost go, excuses, Therese, excuses. You say all of these things. And I actually call myself and I go, Therese, they're excuses. They are all excuses because you were protecting yourself there. In all of those
Mm.
things I said to you, yes, I had KPIs. Yes, the business wasn't delivering this area. Yes, it could be better. But they're all excuses. Actually, as a leader, you don't make excuses. You go, hey, I don't think you're the right person for the role. And you have that conversation with that person. And I know it's common and it happens all the time, and they ghost search and they ghost hunt behind the scenes. And actually, it's not the right thing to do. So, very recently, and this is a few years on now, I did say to this person, because we've got a great relationship still, but I did say to them, hey, so and so said to me, you stumbled across those emails. And they laughed and they said, yeah, about those. I said, we should have a drink and talk about that sometime. And they said,
Oh,
yeah. I think the good thing is we had a relationship, a strong relationship that was far greater than that, which is brilliant. But as a leader, I go, that was not Therese at her best. Therese at her best puts her ego at bay. She's not in fight or flight mode. She goes, okay, let's stick to logic here. We've got a problem here. The right thing to do, talk about human-centric leadership. Let me go and take that person out for a drink or a chat and let's talk about it. And let's talk about, hey, why it's not working, what we need to do, and go from there.
I think that is such a great example, and thank you for being so raw and honest about that because and it's really hard to have a hard conversation. It really is. It's easy to say, "Let's have a hard conversation," but in practice, it is so hard.
It's so much easier to just not have the conversation. That's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's really going back to your values, isn't it? Isn't it great that even though that happened, you had a great relationship, you repaired it, and that you still have a good relationship today, even though that could have gone a very different way where that person could have actually been traumatized from that and it could have changed the action of their career and their confidence. So I think
Absolutely.
that's a wonderful example of we're all human. Trust has been possibly broken and how you've turned around and you've repaired it. I think that's a brilliant,
And I
brilliant
think
example.
thank you, and I think true credit to that person as well, because you're right. They could have gone into a really negative mindset and I can't believe, and they could have become toxic themselves. But instead, they've gone, there's probably more than this email here. There's probably more to this situation. I'm still going to be the best person I'm going to be. I'm still going to grow. I'm still going to have a relationship with this person to the point that there's a lot of conversation and time between us before I found this out that they had obviously come across it. But all credit to that person for also going, it was a moment in time, and I think there's more of this story that I'm aware of, and I'm not gonna let it bring me down.
And look, going back to that, assuming good intention always first, and
Mhm.
then finding out all the information. What a great example. One last question. What excites you most about the future of leadership?
I am seeing a new generation of leaders come through. A generation who are more human, who are more real, bigger mix of genders. I'm seeing a generation who challenge the status quo. There was a young boy at Mad Next once, and our founder had said to him, "Oh, hey guys, I'm gonna, get a coffee. Would anyone like one?" And if the head of the business, the owner says that, you just say yes or no. So that's the traditional. His little gorgeous young man goes, "It all depends. What cafe are you going to?" I just laughed and I just went, "So what if you head up this business? So what if you own it? And thanks for asking me for a coffee, but I'm just keen to know I've got a cafe that I like." That is, challenge the status quo in a really, like, in a different way, but it's also just going,
Mhm.
"Well, human." That excites me about this upcoming generation. And I know a lot of young and up and comers, and they are real and they are authentic and they're smart and they are innovative. And I hope that I could just be a little part of helping them be the change that they wish to see in the world.
That's amazing. And then on that, talking about the generation, if you could go back to 15-year-old Therese, what would you tell her?
Just always back yourself, I think, is a big one. You got to back yourself because nobody else is going to back you. There's certain times in life nobody else is going to back you. Actually, Selena, this is what I will tell her. Now that I think of it, one thing I've learned so much more than anything in life, everything in life is only temporary. If you're
Mm,
in a really hard time, it's okay, it's gonna pass. If you're in a really toxic work environment, okay, do what you can with it. Look for something else. If you can't be the change, then look for something else because everything in life is only temporary. You heard that someone said something. You're not delivering the results that you want to deliver. Keep going, keep trying, change your mindset. Everything in life is only temporary. If I think back to incidents that happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this morning, there are so many things that upset you or impact you, but you go, I got through them because everything in life is only temporary. And I think the biggest thing we've got to do is just keep going, just make progress because that's going to pass and something else is going to come along that's going to make us feel uncomfortable and we're going to hate it and we're going to be upset. But everything in life is only temporary. Keep going, keep progressing.
because this too shall pass. I
Because
heard
this
somebody told that to me just recently. I'm like, it's so true.
and you think back and you go, "Oh, wow, when I was 18 and that was happening, that was the worst part of my life."
Mhm.
Now I go, "Oh, I've had several more worst parts of my life than I did then." Right? So, you know what, 15-year-old Therese, keep powering through, keep having a positive mindset, keep giving it a go. Because when there are down times, and there'll be bad times, hard times, challenging times, keep going through. Everything is only temporary in life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, Therese. What stands out to me is that trust at a CEO level isn't about grand gestures alone. It's about the everyday choices and the everyday actions that we take with people at all levels of the business. And it's also about the consistency, honesty, and the care that you have. And it's creating cultures where people feel safe to speak up and also to contribute and to belong. Thank you for joining me in this
Thank
great, rich conversation.
Thanks so much, Selena. Look, I love us having this chat, and I just hope that, this conversation and some of the things we shared will send some ripples out there and help others be the change they wish to see in the world.
Absolutely. And talking about human, I mean, at the beginning of this recording, we heard a few little bumps and then we had to like pause because uh, was taking out the bins because it is quite late now. It's like 7 p.m.
No, I know I'm working from the office in the garage, and the bins are just behind that garage door. So thanks, babe.
So I love that. It's all just about being human.
Always. Selena, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Making Work Work for Humans. If today's conversation resonated, share it with someone who's committed to building healthier, more human workplaces. See you next time. This episode is sponsored by Pushbar, technology built for humans at scale, helping organizations build productive, high-trust teams through mentoring.